Woo. Oh, yeah, we got to hit record.
All right, I'm recording.
And so am I. We are recording. We are doing it live, ladies and gentlemen. Um, hey, welcome to the Micheaux Mission, Two Men, One Podcast, every black film ever made. My name is Len, aka the Bat Triple. Oh, there you go. And as always, I'm joined by my partner.
Hey, it is Vincent Williams.
Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, it's Vince's turn to choose the movie that we watch. And if you were listening last week, he chose a classic movie from the
I did.
70s that is nowhere to be found streaming. We'll talk about that in a moment. But Vince, ever ready, because he was a lifelong Boy Scout, bet you didn't know that.
It's true.
He actually had another movie ready in his quiver. So tonight we are going back to 1992 and we are visiting that movie chock full of black actors such as Bill Paxton and Billy Bob Thornton, along with Cynda Williams and Michael Beach. It is Carl Franklin's One False Move tonight on the Micheaux Mission. But before we get into that, we like to follow up with each and every one of you who is following us on Facebook in our Micheaux Mission Facebook group, as well as subscribing to the Micheaux Mission on YouTube and emails us at micheauxmission@gmail.com. We thought that we were going to be together again, once again.
I know.
In a room this week.
I know. I had to run back out, and now me and the family are doing a modified self-quarantine.
That's right, because you actually had to run back down to Maryland.
Back to the homeland, and now I'm back. So,
and if I understand, Maryland is on Pennsylvania's list of suggested states that if you travel from there, that they suggest that you actually do a quarantine for 14 days.
It actually isn't. Yeah, Maryland Maryland.
Is it just Delaware?
Yeah, Maryland is actually doing better than Pennsylvania.
Oh,
okay. I was just a little looser in my personal practices down there than I should, just out and about. The irony is that because Maryland is doing better, people aren't as diligent down there as they are even here in Philadelphia with the mask and the distancing. So just safe than sorry. We're just going to sort of modify self-quarantine for a minute.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. As I was telling you before we hit record, I've actually had a slight setback, a slight weather setback in the bat base. So it will not be ready to premiere for a couple more weeks. So it actually is good that you won't be here this week. It'll give me some time to get things ready for its debut when you return home to the bat base.
Yes. And then we'll pop open the champagne and maybe get Killer of Sheep on DVD.
Yeah, we were supposed to actually be watching Charles Burnett's Killer of Sheep, his ode to 70s life in the Watts section of Los Angeles this week. But that film, as heralded as it is not streaming any place.
Yeah. It's funny. I have to say, I don't know about you, but I know more about Killer of Sheep by reputation, than by film itself. And just sort of prepping, it seems like I found out about the licensing issues that it had all along, and it's only fairly recently that it's been on DVD even.
Right, with I think is it Milestone Media that owns?
I think so. Now? Yeah, I think so. But I know it's terrible to always go back to this. But it's a WKRP in Cincinnati situation.
Right.
where the music clearances apparently were a huge impediment
Mm-hmm.
to it being more widely distributed. But now we know, and like we said, it all came together. Like I couldn't come over there. The Bat Base wasn't ready, so it was supposed to be part of the celebration. So
Right.
we just put it back up on the shelf. But we'll pull it down. We're pulling it down.
We'll be pulling it down. I actually did order a copy of it off of Amazon, so that'll be here in a couple of days. Oh yeah.
There you go.
Well, you know what? I got so psyched about watching the film that I actually was watching the preview, and I was watching the preview with my my lady love.
Right.
And she was unaware of the film. She had never heard of the film. So in watching the trailer for the film, which is available online, and there are some clips online. Try not to watch too much because you don't want to spoil it.
Sure.
But in watching that and then in reading up on the movie, she was very, very psyched to watch the film.
Right.
So it actually was a bit of a disappointment for her that we weren't able to watch it. So hope the film will be here by this weekend. So that'll be a film that we will be watching this weekend, along with, while we'll be watching Killer of Sheep, directed by Charles Burnett, we'll be watching another film that is recently debuted from a Black director, The Old Guard.
Yeah.
Netflix,
oh, yeah.
Starring Charlize Theron, and I believe it has been directed by Gina Blythewood, correct?
Yeah, or By the Wood. Remember we had someone say, perhaps it's pronounced By the Wood, Gina Prince By the Wood.
Right, Gina Prince By the Wood.
Yeah. And Kiki Lane. Don't forget Kiki Lane.
Oh, that's right.
Don't forget our girl is in it. Yeah.
Kiki Lane is also in this film, which is based on, ladies and gentlemen, an action-packed graphic novel.
Yes, it is.
And Charlize Theron, who has been doing a yeoman work in the action sphere for the last few years, I've heard nothing but good things about this film.
I'm very, very, very happy for Miss By the Wood. I'm extremely happy. Much like you, I've heard nothing but good things from different quarters too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Critically, just sort of pedestrians.
Mm-hmm.
I just was looking for something on Netflix. Action folks. Like, as you mentioned, it is based on a graphic novel. Our comic folks, like across the board, this is a triumph.
I know.
Yeah.
And what makes it even more of a triumph for me, and probably for you as well, is that in the world of Hollywood, let's face it, the roles for women in Hollywood can be very limiting, even more so for Black women, and even more so for Black women directors.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And more often than not, they are asked to basically fill a lane in that sphere. And one of the lanes that it is hard pressed for them to make the leap into is to a big budget action film with A-list talent. You can't get more A-list as far as in the movie sphere right now than Netflix. You can't get one of the more A-list actresses who is one of the most bankable stars in the planet right now is Charlize Theron. And everybody is looking for the next comic book property to turn into gold. So
right.
For Gina Prince Bythewood, for her to get a shot at that golden ticket, bravo.
Yeah, and kill it. Like, get a shot and kill it.
Right.
So,
exactly.
Yeah. So excellent. Well done. Congratulations.
Yeah. So I am looking forward to that this weekend. I have a fresh bag of buttered pretzel balls.
Oh my God.
That are waiting. I'm just saving them to eat while I watch the Old Guard.
All right. Again, they know how to get in touch with Podglomerate.
Shout out to Robert Monroe, Deborah Battle, Aaron Fry and everyone who's out there watching us on YouTube and Facebook.
Hey, folks.
We stream this show live, ladies and gentlemen, on video, so you can check us out. You can see two graybeards talk about black film live every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. On our Facebook group, Micheaux Mission, as well as on YouTube. For those of you listening at home on the podcast. All right. There was another story that we wanted to shout out a little bit, Vince. One from last week that you wanted to make sure that we got around, make sure to give some props to, and that is the Oscar-winning animator Matthew Cherry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Won an Oscar for the short film Hair Love, which was one of my absolute favorite things on earth last year.
Amen. Wasn't it so? It was adorable.
I watch Hair Love once every couple of months.
You need to in these days and time.
I love Hair Love so much, and I'm so happy that he has gotten a series deal with HBO Max and for the show Young Love. That's going to expand on the adventures of the young family featured in Hair Love.
I know.
So
I know.
I'm so happy for him as well. And if you've not seen Hair Love, then by all means take it's like 7 or 8 minutes.
That's it.
Yeah, take the 7 or 8 minutes and go watch Hair Love. It's still around, it's still free, and it is heartwarming and heartfelt and beautiful.
It is indeed beautiful. Yeah. And much love to Matthew Cherry for nailing that down. The animation, the computer animation on Hair Love was second to none for it to be a relatively short film, an independent film, and for that to be his calling card to a series deal with the new HBO Max is just really great. That's what it's about right now, and I applaud him. Applaud his success. Did you see this, Vince, that the showrunner from Insecure, Prentice Penny, did a guest column for Deadline calling out systemic racism in Hollywood? Now, we all know about systemic racism in Hollywood. We know about systemic racism all over. Let's face it.
Right.
But his call out is so on the nose, poignant. I'm just going to read the first half of it, ladies and gentlemen. There's a link to it in our Facebook group where you can check it out. He says, do you know how effing hard it is to get a joke on a television show? It starts with a bit. Then it's approved by the showrunner. I know because I am one. Then it has to make it through multiple rewrites. Then a table read. Then the studio and network sign off. Then actors and directors have to film it. Then an editor, studio, and network, again, along with standards and practices, sign off. Finally, it's aired, and sponsors/local affiliate stations have to be okay with it. That's a lot of people with power who approve what the American audience gets to watch. And ain't no one along the way think blackface was maybe a bad idea.
Yeah.
Over the past few weeks, we've seen Tina Fey, Greg Daniels, Bill Lawrence, and many other showrunners pull their blackface episodes off the air. And to quote LeBron James, it was not one, not two, not three, but multiple episodes of multiple series. I get the instinct to want to remove these episodes. You want to be considerate of the movie, but not today. Removing these episodes absolves you and all of us from having a long overdue conversation. It ain't like racism just started this past June. Last week, these same episodes were available to watch. One could make the point, although they be wrong, that these episodes would have made sense had they been made in the 1950s. But these episodes were made in the 2000s by the same people who tweet and mock the tone deafness of Megyn Kelly's inability to understand why blackface is wrong. Huh? It continues on from there. It is a fantastic throwdown by Prentice Penny. I invite you all to check it out. It's on Deadline. And I don't need to say anything else. Bruce just said it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Love it. It. Like you said, it's systemic. And you hear people, I mean, it's every 6 months somebody writes something about this, about trying to succeed in the art, in academics, in corporate America, in wherever, and dealing with the systems of racism and of bigotry, and I love the fact that at least at this moment people are calling things what they are out loud. So,
I got a question for you.
Okay.
Most of the shows, and I've been reading about all these shows that have been pulling their blackface episodes and stuff like that, and most of them, to be honest, are shows that I don't watch.
Right.
I'm not even aware of these blackface episodes. I don't know what the context was of these blackface episodes, so I can't really speak about them, right? But I'm curious, since we are primarily a movie podcast, at the core, are you familiar with the movie from, it's probably over 10 years old now, Tropic Thunder?
Yes.
Which starred, of course, Ben Stiller, Jack Black, and Robert Downey Jr.
Yes.
Famously or infamously,
right,
in blackface for the whole movie.
Right.
Now, I would contend that the reason that he was in blackface, there was definitely a context to it,
exactly,
story-wise, and the uncomfortableness of him being in blackface and the fact that he was in blackface was germane to the story.
I was about to say it was actually part of the plot.
Right. So when I watched that, I didn't find that it was off-putting to me. I saw the humor in it. Don't get me wrong. I know people, I have friends who totally disagree. Saw that it was in blackface, just can't get down with it. Right?
Right.
I was curious where you fell with Tropic Thunder.
I'm the same way. I actually thought the whole point of his character in blackface was to critique the character in blackface. And you know, if you kind of pull out a bit and look at the plot of the film, it was poking fun at the concept of the method actor, if you will, who becomes so enveloped in the role that they lose themselves. But much like you, I don't have a problem with people being offended by it.
Right.
Likewise, there's an episode of Community that they pulled because one of the characters, it's a Dungeons and Dragons episode.
Okay.
And one of the characters, and I just forgot the actor's name. It's the Asian actor who's in the Hangover movies.
Yeah. Wow.
Anyway, it's relevant that he's Asian because in the Dungeons and Dragons episode, he basically dresses up as a quote unquote dark elf. And he covers himself in black makeup. Okay. So that when you think about the history of blackface, that doesn't really quite fit into the history of blackface. But at the same time, I just have to say, if you're not black, I don't really want to hear your opinion of blackface.
Oh,
nor do I feel like you should even play with it.
Okay.
And I'm really a hard liner. Like it's sort of like the word nigger, blackface. You know, a lot of these a lot of these sort of racially specific topics that there are a variety of opinions on.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a variety of conversations about them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not Black, I'm not having that conversation with you at all.
Okay.
Like, this isn't your business. This is family business.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. And that actor's name is Ken Jeong.
Yeah, Ken Jeong, right.
Right. I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. In context to, let's say, that episode of Community or Tropic Thunder.
Right. So Dan Harmon, the creator of Community, is white.
Right.
Ken Jeong is Asian.
Right.
This is a bit they worked out amongst themselves.
Right.
I didn't have a problem with it. Let's say you had a problem with it.
Right.
So you and I debated. Dan Harmon comes in to give his side of it. I'm gonna go, mind your business. Don't have nothing to do with you.
Right.
And then you and I talk.
So in that scenario, so Dan Harmon, no, we don't care about his opinion, or well, you wouldn't care about his opinion in regards to this. But couldn't you argue that he's already showed his opinion because he produced that episode?
But he was out of pocket. So people drag him over the coals. You shouldn't have done it. And like, again, personally, I was like, I understood what he was doing. But like, if you and you know, the advertisers and everybody pressure people to drop Community off of Hulu and this, that, and the other, I'm basically that SpongeBob SquarePants meme where the dude Squidward leans up and then he put his glasses back on and leans back down.
Got you.
Because you shouldn't have messed with it. Like, you shouldn't have messed with it.
Right. So you're lucky that it didn't bother me. But if you get dragged for it, oh well, that's what you
get.
Right.
That's what you get. You shouldn't have messed with it.
Got you. Okay. All right. And that's kind of like how I feel too.
Right. And that's my opinion of this stuff. Like, again, the word nigger, which is going to come up in this episode with this film. We've talked about it before. Some people don't think the word should be used. Some people think the word should just be used with us. Some people use ridiculous terms like N-word, or, you know, people argue about A's and ERs.
Right.
And again, I've had a variety of that conversation. I don't have that conversation with anybody who's not Black, though.
Exactly.
Like, if you're not Black, this don't have nothing to do with you.
Yes.
This is family business.
Exactly.
And then you kind of go from, but you know, again, that's me. You asked me.
I did ask you.
Yes.
And thank you for sharing, Vince.
Hey, man, always.
All right. Let's see. Well, you know what? It's almost that time, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
For us to get into our review of One False Move, the other Cynda Williams film.
Yeah, how about that? We've not covered Cynda Williams' filmography. Is that true?
I
think it is.
I'm pretty sure it's the only other one of real note.
Right, these are the only two that I think of.
I think.
Apparently she was in a billion movies.
What? No, she wasn't.
A billion. She was just in a movie in 2012. Now, I haven't heard of any of them.
Get out of here. She was.
I am looking at her right now.
Okay, but wait a minute, Vince. Yes, she was in a bunch of movies. Well, let's go through some of these titles. She started her career with Mo Better Blues.
I don't need to go through the titles. Right.
With One False Move.
And then
she's in Wet.
She was also in Tales of Erotica.
Relax, It's Just Sex. When Do We Eat?
Oh, that's terrible.
I'm just saying.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that as well.
We will. As we get into our review of One False Move. Getting to know you, getting to know about you.
What's that from? Is that from South Pacific or The King and I?
I have absolutely no idea. I know it from a Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Oh, for God's sake.
That's where I know about 2 lines to every great piece of musical theater
I know.
because Bugs Bunny sings them one of them in one of his cartoons.
I have read several articles that talks about the ambient cultural education that people our age have about opera and classical music.
Yes.
Because of Bugs Bunny.
Kids don't get it.
Right. Like we have Temple's radio station on in our kitchen radio, and they just play classical music during the day.
That's right.
And the only time I recognize a piece is if it was on Bugs Bunny.
Exactly.
Right. Or Carmen. Like I can pull Carmen.
Okay.
Because of Carmen Jones.
Right. But like that's the only like
but I'm done. Now I'm done.
Bugs Bunny is the one that introduced me to the Barber of Seville.
The Ring, the Barber of Seville, The Ring. Oh my goodness.
Everything, man. She's the daughter of Rosie O'Grady, a regular old-fashioned girl.
Right.
Everything, dog.
Speaking of blackface, I wish I was in Dixie. Okay. Oh yeah. They just used to throw Bugs Bunny cartoons on.
Oh God.
Unga bunga bunga bunga.
Unga bunga bunga bunga.
Unga bunga binga bunga binga bunga binga. Terrible.
Robin Monroe says, one time a girlfriend took me to the Met for an opera and was embarrassed when I said, I know this from Bugs Bunny.
That's right. Don't be embarrassed.
Don't be embarrassed. Sing along.
That's the cultural education. Figaro, Figaro.
No, that's not what you do. You stand up and proudly proclaim, kill the rabbit. Lightning flow. Thunder flow.
Lord! What have I done? I've killed the rabbit.
Oh God. Oh God. I may have to keep this on the podcast.
Well, what did you expect? An opera always has a sad ending.
Oh God.
What's Up Opera should win Academy Awards every year. Just every year.
I know. I think that's the one that was nominated for an Oscar. I'm not sure if it won.
Oh yeah.
I know he's won an Oscar. Man. I don't know if he won an Oscar for that. Let's see. Now I gotta look it up.
Cause we should probably talk about a movie though.
We should, but wait a minute. What's Opera Doc is oh wow, check this out, Vince. The things you learn. What's Opera Doc? First of all, think of how many times you've watched that, Vince. What year do you think that cartoon is from?
I assume the 50s.
1957.
Yeah.
It features Elmer chasing bugs through a parody of 19th century classical composer Richard Wagner's operas, particularly The Ring. It borrows heavily from the second opera in the Ring cycle. And the cartoon marks the final appearance of Elmer Fudd in a Chuck Jones cartoon.
Wow.
I would have never imagined that.
Wow. Well, what a way to go out.
I know, right?
Like, that's how you take a bow.
I know. The cartoon is widely regarded as Chuck Jones's masterpiece And many film critics, animation fans, and filmmakers consider it to be the greatest of all the cartoons Warner Brothers released. It has topped many top 10 lists of the greatest animated cartoons of all time. In 1992, the United States Library of Congress deemed it culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant and selected it for preservation in the National Film Registry, making it the first cartoon to receive such honors.
If they're going to pick one, that's the one to pick.
Wow. And Chuck Jones is the only animator with 3 shorts which have since been recognized for that honor. What's Opera Doc, Duck Amuck, and
that's a good one.
And your favorite, One Froggy Evening.
Really?
Yes. Yes. Your man Michigan J. Frog's debut.
Who's a demon?
Yes, the demon.
Hello, baby.
Hello. J. Frog is in the Library of Congress.
Wow. Well, there you go.
That's one to grow on, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes,
You're welcome.
It is. And now you know the rest of the story. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's get into our review of One False Move. We may not even play a trailer. We may just keep that in there. That was so good.
I know.
Good stuff. All right. You ready?
Yeah. Let's do this.
One False Move is a 1992 American crime thriller directed by Carl Franklin and co-written by Billy Bob Thornton. The film also stars Bill Paxton and Cynda Williams. It's a low-budget production that Gene Siskel voted his favorite film of 1992. The plot centers around 3 criminals, Ray, Pluto, played by Michael Beach, and Fantasia, Ray's girlfriend, Cynda Williams, who commit 6 brutal murders over the course of one night in Los Angeles as they seek a cache of money and cocaine. The trio leave for Houston to sell the cocaine to a friend of Pluto's, where they somehow stumble into Arkansas, the home of local sheriff Bill Paxton. This film from 1992 was Vince's audible that he called.
It's my audible, yeah.
For tonight's episode of the Micheaux Mission. Vince, what say you of One False Move?
While this is my audible, this is a film that I've had on my list for years. I'm a big fan of One False Move, and quite honestly, I don't have a whole lot to say technically about this film outside of I think this is a great film just from top to bottom. And this is the film that led me to a lot of different people. We talked about Carl Franklin last time when we talked about his film Devil in a Blue Dress. And when we talked to his next film, actually, and Devil in a Blue Dress was on my radar because of his direction of One False Move. It is taut. It is not a hair out of place. I think scene to scene, there are scenes that are, the tension is palpable. I think he's a really good director. Likewise, you and I talked, and ironically, I had forgotten that Billy Bob Thornton was in this film, but I really had forgotten because I didn't know.
How'd you forget that ponytail?
Well, and more importantly, I remember that he wrote the script.
Okay.
And Sling Blade was on my radar because of this film.
Okay.
I love this screenplay. I think this is a tight screenplay. And again, just the dialogue and the storytelling, and just from piece to piece, I think works really, really well, especially in concert with the direction. Acting wise, we joked about it. I don't think Cynda Williams is a great actress, but I think this film, where she plays a femme fatale, and we'll talk about that in a moment, she has more going on than just being the hot girl in Mo Better Blues.
Okay.
And I like Cynda Williams' character a great deal. Now, how much of that is the screenplay and how much of that is Cynda Williams, I think we can talk about. But I think this is a great character. Billy Bob Thornton, I think, has always been a good character actor. And I think his character is a great one, or rather a really good one in this film as well. Speaking of movies that, or rather performances that put people on the map, this is my favorite Michael Beach role. This is my favorite, and frankly, this is what, like, I ignored and resisted ER for probably 2 or 3 years before somebody mentioned that Michael Beach was on ER. Okay. And I said, okay, well, let me check it out. Likewise, Bill Paxton, I'm not going to say this is Bill Paxton's best role, frankly, because Bill Paxton was in so many movies that I'm not sure what he was and was not in. But I love this role. I love Hurricane, this small town cop who's just sort of, ambitious and this Yahoo and a good old boy. Yeah. But what all goes along with him being a good old boy. So if you come in here for, you just mentioned Gene Siskel. If you come in here for the Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert thumbs up, thumbs down, I give this a thumbs up. And that's really all I want to say. What I really want to talk about with this film, however, is something that you and I talked about, and something that I have to, Lynn, you all are oftentimes on the same page. My wife said, well, is that a black movie? Like, she remembered watching it. And I think this film is a rich experience when looked through the lens of how race works in this movie. Okay. Again, I've always been a fan of this movie. This movie has been on my mind a lot since this summer. I actually read a great book. Well, I'm going to hold it up, but like, if you're listening to the podcast, you won't see it. But Film Blackness, American Cinema and the Idea of Black Film by Michael Boyce Gillespie. And he's a prof out of New York who studies film. And you want to talk about dream guests. If anybody knows Michael Boyce Gillespie, we'd love to have him on the show. But he has a chapter about film noir. Yes. Okay. And deep cover, and the film Deep Cover, which I mentioned that because Deep Cover is also on my short list of films to talk about. But within this chapter, he quotes Montua Dewewa, and I may be mispronouncing his name, but he wrote an essay called Noir by Noirs, Towards a New Realism in Black Cinema. And this whole essay is about Black creators playing with noir, right? Film noir. Now, if anyone who has listened to this podcast, I think if you're going to break down the line of demarcation between me and Lynn, I think you're really the film guy. Like, you're a film guy. Okay. I like black stuff. Yes. And black movies under film is kind of like where the Venn diagram you and I meet for this podcast. Right. So I don't know a lot about film noir as a form. I like some movies. I know it's The Shadows and this, that, and the other. But apparently a dude in 1955, Raymond Board and Etienne Chamoton, wrote this seminal work. That's what it says in here. Panorama du film noir américain. In 1955. And what they theorize is that noir, which comes after World War II, and basically you have white people, frankly, trying to construct this American dream, this post-war American dream. And what noir represents is, quote, is black because the characters have lost the privilege of whiteness by pursuing lifestyles that are misogynistic, cowardly, duplicitous, and that exhibit themselves in an eroticism of violence.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, when you look at film noir and you look at the femme fatale and you look at all of the figures in the underworld, what they represent is this symbolic blackness.
Yes.
Because they are not part of the pure white world.
Okay.
Gillespie goes on to say that these black filmmakers complicate that by bringing race into the foreground where we talk about these issues. And I think that works a couple of ways in this film. First and foremost, this is a film set in the South. I know we can argue about Arkansas geographically, is that the South, what part of the South? But I think it is fair to say that culturally, this is the South.
Most definitely.
And when we talk about the South and we talk about these small towns and we talk about, the small town policeman and the good old boy and it's almost like the Andy Griffith model.
I was about to say, he is almost like the amalgamation of Andy Griffith and Barney Fife from the Andy Griffith Show, in that he is a good cop. He is a good old boy cop, but like Barney Fife, he just longs to do so much more and make it to the big time.
But the way that this script and Carl Franklin complicate that is that he's a small town cop.
Yes. Yes.
These are the dudes who are in the Klan.
Yes.
Like, these are actually the racist dudes. And I think, again, back to this script, it does a magnificent job showing the racism of Hurricane, whether it's when he's first on a conference call and he talks about the two colored boys, whether it's when he gets excited and he says, if that white trash and those two niggers get here, I'm going to catch him, and his wife kicks him under the table.
Because he's speaking in front of a black FBI agent. A
black FBI agent that I love the subtle racism, that he is so disrespectful of him that he never gets his name right.
Exactly.
The entire film.
Right.
So that this framing of this small town and this sort of idyllic existence is already complicated by the fact that this man who safeguards this town is racist. And once you look through that lens, it complicates the whole environment. There's this wonderful scene where he goes and there's a domestic situation and a guy is going after his wife with an axe, basically, or he's swinging an axe around. Like, I think the implication is he was not going to hurt his wife. But
right.
But
this is what they do.
The two big city detectives see it. They take out their guns because they just see a crazy guy swinging an axe around.
Right.
But then Hurricane goes and he talks him down and he de-escalates and everything goes around. But to me, the most chilling part of that scene was when Hurricane, as he is de-escalating, tells the guy, look, you can put the axe in the shed, you can apologize, or do you want to go for a ride with me?
Yeah.
Do you want to go for a ride with me? And the implication is that you don't want to go for a ride with Hurricane.
Exactly.
And of course, as we all it's almost like a gallows humor at this point. We all know that if this dude was black swinging this axe around, Hurricane would not have de-escalated like that.
Oh, no, not at all.
Cynda Williams, who is a biracial character, represents this muddying of the lines. Again, with film noir, the morality is very stark.
That's true.
You have the pure world, you have the moral world, you have this white world, and then you have the underworld.
Yes.
And the failings of the people in film noir is that they go into this other world. Whereas in this, she is a femme fatale, but much like Robin Givens' character in another film that he cites in Noir by Noirs, A Rage in Harlem, this is a black woman who is trying to navigate this world not from a position of power, but who does not have a lot of cards to play. And then as we find out as the film goes on, Hurricane has fathered a child with her when she was a teenager. And, the implication is that perhaps this started before she was, she had the baby when she was 17. But, you know, as he tells the story about him meeting her to the big city cop for, I believe he said 5 years, he was mentoring her after he caught her shoplifting.
Yeah.
So, you know, you kind of make your own leap. But Fantasia is very pointed about the fact that I come from a tradition of this. I'm biracial because my father was white, who abandoned my mother.
Exactly.
Now you are abandoning me. And she actually says at one point, does your wife know that you have a child in Nigger Town?
Mm-hmm.
So that in my mind, and then, you know, we can talk about Michael Beach's Pluto, because I think Pluto is part of a tradition too. But in my mind, what makes this film pop is the muddiness of race and how it kind of, well, muddies it up.
Yeah, I would agree with you that that is the heat for the most part of the film, right? And everything that you just said, I think, is on the nose. I think that at its heart, first of all, at its heart, as a film itself, this is a good film. I joked before we turned on the mics that I didn't like the movie. It's a good film. I'm not stupid. This is a good film. It's got good actors in it. Cynda Williams is not, we've said, not the best actress in the world, but her performance is buoyed by being around and playing against Billy Bob Thornton, playing against Michael Beach, playing against Bill Paxton, so that her naivete as an actress, because to be blunt, this is only her second film, is not as distracting because she is usually playing off of them, right? So, but it's a very good, it's definitely a film noir. It has a lot of the touches of it. It has some very crisp and exciting editing in it, in this film, which is always on hallmark of a good film noir. Editing that can play with tone and pace in a film very expertly. And this film has it. It's got a bit of the Southern Gothic about it as well. That makes it enjoyable. So there is a lot to admire about this film. And the heat that does come from the story of Cynda Williams' character, Fantasia, or her real name, Lila, and her relationship with Bill Paxton's Hurricane is definitely the meat of this film. My only contention, as far as keeping it in the realm of being a black film or not, is that because that comes decidedly later in the film, I think it probably is not real. It's not really hit dead on the nose until you're going into the third act of the movie, if I remember. I don't think that that's enough for me to land it in black film territory. That being said, if you want to say it's a black film, if a whole bunch of other people want to say it's a black film, if the village wants to say it's a black film, I'm not going to pull it out of that section. I'm going to be like, okay, it's a black film. It's fine. Because race is commented on subtly and subtextually in this film all throughout the script. It is a very tight script. It does show you that Billy Bob Thornton, who would go on to be not only be one of the more heralded character actors, but one of the more heralded lead actors in Hollywood in the 90s and the early 2000s. It definitely shows that if he wanted to, this man could have easily made possibly the same mark just as a screenwriter. because he would have only, his skills would have just only tightened up as he went along the way. And I wouldn't be surprised to find out that he doesn't have a secret hand on a lot of his scripts, because it is expertly written. The dialogue is crisp. And what the one thing I do like about the dialogue is that a crime movie and a film noir, especially as that genre has moved into the 60s and 70s and into the 21st century, more and more does not hold punches. And yet, when you have a movie that is about race between black people and white people, as much commentary as you may want to make on it, unless that film is decidedly about slavery or about a moment in time, then I always feel that there's at some moment that they take their foot off the pedal as far as the realism of what they're depicting. You know, they still want to play it a little safe. Right. And in a film noir, you can't do that. You've got to go for it. So if you're going to muddy the waters and bring race into this, then you've got to go balls to the wall with it. And I say that because it is very, very disturbing to see Billy Bob Thornton early on in this film break into a party that is happening. Basically, even though he uses Fantasia's character as a way in. But then him and Michael Beach break into this party. You know, it's just three people, three black people in there having a good time dancing. And he stands a young woman up against the wall and he slaps her, I think conservatively, 10 times across the face, trying to get an answer to a question. He's decidedly a bad guy. He has two black partners that are with him. One of the black partners is meanwhile tying up everybody else in the house. Michael Beach's character standing there looking all the world like a silent assassin, while this white man unapologetically is slapping the hell out of this woman up against the wall. And you need that ferocity in this film to, one, shorthand exactly who this character is, exactly their relationship in this film, and exactly to introduce you to, this is the type of movie that you're watching. Sit down. If you're in it, sit down and enjoy it. We're going to rock with you. If you're not, turn off step out of the movie theater right now. And I appreciated that right from the door. I will. It was uncomfortable for me, especially knowing that, you know, this is a black film. And well, all the black people in here, but they're getting roped up and tied up and then soon murdered very violently. Okay, what has Vince sat me down for? It is very disturbing. But even with that, because it's a film noir that is set in this milieu and with these two black characters, I still wasn't sure whether or not I could call it a black film. I didn't think that, to me, this was a film noir that is dealing with race, but I don't know necessarily that I would call it a black film noir. But that being said, again, I think I'm convincing myself with it because Billy Bob Thornton wrote this, but he co-wrote it. He actually co-wrote this film. You got to remember that. He co-wrote this film along with Tom Everson, who's actually one of his longtime collaborators.
Right.
Carl Franklin as the director, we have to imagine that he had a hand in crafting this story.
He made choices. That's right.
He made these choices. He directed these actors in
Right.
this film. So
to your point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. To your point, to stay with that scene. You know what I love about that first sequence, where, just to finish the plot summary, they're going over there. They torture these people to get to the big drug dealer so that they can rob him.
Right.
These are two domestic scenes that they show. As you said, this is a family. They're celebrating. It's actually a birthday party.
That's right. That's right.
It's 1992, so they're playing with their video camera and taping each other. And then they go and they break into the other dealer's house, who's there with his wife and his child.
Yeah.
These are two domestic situations. Now, this is 1992. When you depict drug dealers in 1992 and black drug dealers, it's always some dude with his rag on his head, and he doesn't have a shirt on.
Yeah.
And like Ice Cube is blaring, and it's some pit bulls on chains.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is what drug dealers look like.
Right. Right.
And in a film, again, playing with noir, for you to say that these people, who are by definition part of the underworld, are in domestic situations.
Yes.
They actually cut from, because when they go to the second dealer's house, his son hides. And Cynda Williams' character, Fantasia, lets him get away. But then they smash cut to Hurricane's house, where he's with his wife and his daughter. So that the film actually juxtaposes these two scenes of domesticity.
Yeah.
But it's letting you know early on that there is no clear line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when, again, Cynda Williams lets this child go because she reminds him of her son. Hurricane is looking at his daughter and his wife in this sort of beautiful, picture-perfect household. But then you find out that the implication is that he's been statutory raping Cynda Williams' character.
Yeah.
I don't know what the age of consent is in Arkansas in 1992, but she was 17 when she had the baby, and then he abandoned the child.
Right. And he was the sheriff.
And he is the lawman. So that all of it is again, I feel like, I'm just keep saying it. These are black drug dealers who you are uncomfortable with their murder, because within 2 or 3 minutes, because of the direction, because of the screenplay, because of the editing, they are humanized in a way that in 1992, I don't have it, off the top of my head. I forget what year Tales from the Hood was, but just pulling Tales from the Hood out of the air. And we talk about the way black drug dealers were shown in something like that. I think this is very much part of a black film conversation. Something else, this isn't black, but I love this little moment. Again, Hurricane is part of this perfect domestic situation. He has a wife, this sort of perfect white wife. She cooks. She's a mother. She's all of this stuff that you have. I love the fact that she's smarter than Hurricane now.
Oh, yeah.
I love the fact that she's not some innocent just sitting in this sort of nest where he kind of comes back. Like I text Lynn, there's this wonderful exchange that she has with the white detective, because Hurricane looks up to him and Hurricane has these dreams of moving to the big city. And she says to him, Hurricane just doesn't know any better.
Right.
Hurricane watches TV, but I read nonfiction. And I love that moment of clarity that it came from her. So that even that subverts your expectations. We were watching The Bodyguard a few weeks ago, and I caught The Untouchables on cable.
Oh, wow.
And I like The Untouchables, but it's a very simplistic film.
Oh yeah.
And Kevin Costner's wife, and I just forgot the actress's name who plays his wife in The Untouchables.
Oh, I can't remember.
But her whole job in The Untouchables is to be white and pretty and a mom and wear dresses and kind of clutch her pearls about the danger that Kevin Costner is in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because even The Untouchables is a play on this. And you have two types of women. You have the femme fatale and you have the innocent. But even with Hurricane's wife, they kind of muddy it up.
So you're right. And in film noir, all of the best film noir have a femme fatale character in them.
Right.
And it's not hard to imagine Carl Franklin looking at Cynda Williams and thinking, oh my gosh, she could be a great femme fatale in this film. But what bothered me about her character, the traditional femme fatale is usually either as smart or smarter than the antagonist and protagonist in the film.
Right.
Fantasia / Lila in this film may be a hair smarter than her 5-year-old son.
Right. I think if we gauge intelligence by survival instinct, I think she's smarter than Billy Bob Thornton's character, and I think arguably she's smarter than Hurricane.
Well, I'll give her that she's smarter than Billy Bob Thornton's character because his character is portrayed to be just not the swiftest,
but I think she is. I think in that scene with Hurricane in that house, she is slowly but surely figuring out how to work him. And if she hadn't have died, I think she was. And I love the moment. There's this beautiful moment where she goes to get her cigarette.
Yeah.
And he goes and grabs the bag, and there's a gun in the bag. And she says, "Did you think I was going to get the gun and shoot you?" And I love the fact that as the viewer, my answer was, I don't know.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know. And to me, that says a lot about her interiority. That I've been watching this whole movie. I watched her shoot the cop. But when she says, did you think I was going to shoot you? I wasn't sure. So, I don't I wouldn't have I wouldn't have been like our president Donald Trump. I wouldn't have paid her to take my SAT for me. But if I had to put money on who was going to figure out how to survive, I don't think it would be a bad bet to put it on her.
Well, I will say, and I did forget about that because when I was watching the film, I had made a comment also that in the end, when she does have her conversation with Hurricane, and it does look like she's trying to play him. First of all, I think that while she is trying to play him, I don't think that at any point she gets over on him. I think he's knocked back on his heels a little bit because of the idea of his son. And I think that he was, you catch wind early on that he was kind of like keeping an eye on the family.
Right.
But you don't know whether or not he implicitly knows that that's his son or not.
Right.
Because you saw him looking at Fantasia's brother with his son at the store, leaving the store. And nothing is said about that. So you don't know exactly what to make of him just kind of like sitting off in his car watching them walk by. So did he know that that was maybe his son? I don't know. Maybe,
Right.
but did he, or was it that he just knew that that was the family of someone who meant something to him, and he was just keeping a watchful eye on them? You don't know, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I
I
want to
agree.
play it that he even if he thought that that might have been his son, he wasn't sure. And then when he is made to realize that it is his son, that he is knocked back on his heels a little bit by it, right? Probably knocked back on his heels by it because of, oh my God, that is my son. And then when you do that, and with Fantasia coming at him as the way that she does, his own, you know, prejudices are now being thrown into his face. His own racism is being thrown into his face. So that also is knocking him back on his heels as well. But I don't think that at any time she gets over on him. If anything, I think she's trying to vie for our sympathy. And
Right.
I think that and I guess I guess see, I'm talking myself into loving the movie even more now, because I think there is a a complication to that whole scene and her, pleading her case, because you as the viewer know that in the back of your mind, not 15 minutes earlier, she shot a cop in cold blood.
Exactly. Exactly.
Unapologetically, gun to the head. So, and in there lies a true femme fatale at work.
Yeah.
So and I guess she is a femme fatale.
Yeah. And not for nothing. I mean, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about Michael Beach's Pluto character, who's just this magnificent monster. You know, it's like where Billy Bob Thornton is all fire and short fuse. He's, Michael Beach's Pluto is just methodical and just kind of cold.
Just coiled and coiled viciousness.
Yeah, and I think what I noticed this time around, because I wanted to pay attention to Cynda Williams, because kind of like you, my memory of this film was that Cynda Williams was the weak link.
Right.
But she was the weak link because everyone else was so strong. So I paid attention to Cynda Williams, and there is a wonderful energy between the three of them from the very beginning, where she's, she comes out in the towel in the room with both of them, but she's always looking at Pluto.
Yeah.
I always got the sense that she was way more aware of how dangerous Pluto was than Billy Bob Thornton was. B, I almost got the sense that she was, like, I almost felt like she was maybe positioning herself to go with Pluto. Like just sort of keeping Pluto on her good side, and she always kept her eye on Pluto. And then when she screws up, when they think the script is so wonderful because the script plays fair. Like, as the viewer, we know they're going to Star City because it was on the videotape. They think that it's because she let the boy go. And Pluto says, oh, you got to get rid of the girl. And that's the end of it. And in my mind, that's when she moves to another layer of, I got to do what I got to do to survive. So that the woman that lets the boy go is not the woman who shoots the cop in the head.
Got you. Okay.
The woman who lets the little boy go still has the Pluto card to play. Pluto says, you got to get rid of the girl. She knows that, Pluto is, now both of them are dead weight.
Right.
So now she shoots the cop, and then you kind of see this again, this evolution of this character again, but the film kind of puts forth that she is put on this road because of what happened with Hurricane.
Right.
Like she makes a point of saying, I was a virgin and everything that virginity means.
Yeah.
And you kind of basically set me on this road.
Kay Martin wrote that I'm going to have to question her intelligence / survival skills when she runs outside towards the bullets without a gun, only armed with screams.
Yes. Well,
fair point.
Right. Especially when Hurricane told her, step back there so you stay out of the line of fire.
Yes.
Like he actually tells her.
Like he literally shows her, like, this is the line of fire.
Right.
Stay here if you want to live.
Right. Well, that's a fair point.
Well, but you know what? You're right. The movie plays fair. Because no sooner does she step in the line of fire,
right, she gets popped.
Then she catches a bullet dead to her head.
Right. And thus endeth the film career of Cynda Williams.
Yeah. So this was an interesting choice, Vince. At the end of the day, I got to say it was a very interesting choice.
Look, I think it's a film that people who it's funny when you read the history of the film, and I think it was supposed to go to direct to video, or it was going to go on cable, and then word of mouth happened.
Yeah.
And I think that has been the legacy of this film, where I don't know how many people talk about it a lot, but people that know it love it.
Yeah.
And you know, I do think, I always think about this film with Blood Simple, the Coen brothers' first film.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the only reason I do that is because I think Blood Simple comes out in 1984. And I know I didn't see it when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw it about the same time. So I always think about the two films together. And much like we've been talking about this whole episode with race in Noir and the Southern Gothic, that is one aspect, because I love the Coen brothers, but that's one aspect of the Coen brothers that has always left me cold. Like, they set a lot of their films in these rural towns, in these Southern towns, and they, for the most part, just ignore race.
Yeah.
Like, they just ignore it.
Yeah, right.
So that, you know, even something like my beloved Fargo, the film Fargo, like, you know, I'm pulling for this plucky small town cop, but I also don't trust small town cops.
Yeah, but I mean, at least with Fargo, what I will say is that you do have the character who's so infatuated with her, and not only are you surprised to meet him, but he's an Asian guy. So while it doesn't deal with it, I mean,
right,
race is still there in a way.
Right, but it's not blackness.
Right, it's not.
And when we're talking about the police, we're talking about blackness, and you know, kind of these small town. You know, I was saying earlier, you know, talking about my favorites was like Justified is in my top 5 shows of the past 20 years. But yeah, you know, the maverick lawman who bends the rules. Like,
I feel you.
You know, I love Justified, but I want somebody to do it by the book, because I know what happens when you go off book.
That's right. We've been there. We've seen
right. That. And ultimately, this is a film that discusses that.
Yes.
This is a film that shows itself. Yeah.
I do think that this is a film that's so close to the late 80s that some of the trappings of it date the film a little bit. And I think that's what maybe keeps the film from kind of like staying on the people's radar. Because when I was watching this, I was thinking of a film that actually comes out much later than I thought, in 1998, with Bill Paxton, Billy Bob Thornton, and Bridget Fonda, A Simple Plan, which is which is not a crime. Well, it is a crime movie, but it's not dealing with the cops. But
Right.
but it's definitely got the Southern Gothic. It's definitely got
Yeah.
the noir in it and the black humor in it as well. And this
Great film, too.
movie was very reminiscent of it. I honestly just think it's some of the trappings of it. Billy Bob Thornton's his ducktail ponytail and Michael Beach's high-waisted pants, button-up collar that maybe, and some of the music choices kind of dates it a little bit to where it's
Sure.
made in 1992, but there's some late 80s aesthetic that
Sure.
might be a bridge that people are not willing to cross to watch this film again. But I applaud people who actually do make the leap, because I think they will sit down and find themselves enjoying a undiscovered gem of the early 90s. This film.
Yeah, and just to circle back, I think that is something that the Coen brothers do very well. Like, there is a timelessness to their work.
Right.
That I think they avoid that issue. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. All right, before we tell everybody.
Wait, did we recommend it?
I thought we pretty much just did. Okay,
we gotta
recommend this film?
We gotta stay on the book. We can't go off book, Lynn. You know what happens when you go off book.
Would you recommend this film, Vince?
I would recommend this film. Very much so.
So
would you recommend this film? There you go.
I would as well. Okay. Now
you about to abuse somebody's civil rights.
Before we tell you what we're going to be watching next week, ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to send us all of your feedback, your thoughts and concerns. Email us at micheauxmission@gmail.com. That's micheauxmission@gmail.com. Like and follow us on all social medias at Micheaux Mission. That's where you can find us, even on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Micheaux Mission. Join the Facebook group, Micheaux Mission, where we have a lot of fun. And follow the Micheaux Mission podcast, available on micheauxmission.com, as well as a proud member of the Podglomerate. The Podglomerate, curated podcast for your listening pleasure. We can also be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, Castbox. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find the Micheaux Mission. And if you want to help us, please, especially on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating and a review, because that really helps people find our show. What else is down the line? Okay, yes, you can also, if you want to support the show, hit us up on the micheauxmission.com and hit swag. Go to the Micheaux Mission store, where you can find tons of t-shirt designs and little tchotchkes celebrating the Micheaux Mission. Every sale, it puts a little bit of coffers, money into our coffers, which helps us keep this show free for you. All right? And the Micheaux Mission is available as a radio show every Monday morning at 9 a.m. on WKDU 91.7 FM, the voice of Drexel University. And you can find us Saturdays at 1 p.m. on WPPM. People Power Media, Philly Cam, here in the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. Okay? All right, Vince.
Yes, sir.
Next week. Now, I'm calling an inner audible on myself for next week's movie.
My goodness, right? That sounds like that hurts.
It did a little bit, but the joy will come in the morning. So, I, as you know, as you rightfully put, I'm the movie guy here.
Yeah.
So when it comes to selecting our films, I like to make sure that we pay homage. We are watching every black film ever made. So
yes, you do.
Usually when we dip into the crates, that's because I pulled the crates out.
And it's true.
Dipped into them. And I was ready to dip into the crates for a film from the 1940s. But then Vince made one false move happen.
Oh.
And with that film, I decided, you know what? I'm going to leave the crates till the fall. I'm
Okay.
just going to go crazy and just have fun pulling all types of movies that arguably could be black films, but you might not think so to look at them at first glance.
Oh
And
boy, here
my
we go.
first choice.
Oh boy, are you ready to defend it as black? Are you ready to defend it as black?
Oh, I am,
Oh.
dog.
Oh,
From
boy.
1995.
Oh boy.
We are dipping into the world, ladies and gentlemen.
I got professors and stuff that back me up. I had a French dude back me up. What you gonna have?
Oh, I'm going to have a tribe that backs me up on this one. And my tribe will outshout all of your professors and learned academics to the high heavens. When I go to 1995 and I go inside the Magic Kingdom that is Walt Disney,
Oh
and
boy.
I pull for our watching pleasure next week a film that features the talents of Jason Marsden, Kelly Martin, Wallace Shawn,
I don't recognize
Jim
any of these names.
Cummings, Bill Farmer,
I still don't know what this is.
and one Pauly Shore,
Wait,
as well
what?
as the voice talents of the incredible Tevin Campbell. Yes, ladies and gentlemen,
Campbell?
I'm bringing you next week
What, the
Walt
Goofy?
Disney's A Goofy Movie.
Oh,
right here
God.
on the Micheaux Mission for your watching and reviewing pleasure.
Oh, there we go. There we go. From one false move to a Goofy movie.
Only
on the
Goofy
Micheaux
movie.
mission.
Only on the Micheaux Mission.
Only on the Micheaux mission.
That's right. That's right. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, George Kimona. You give me your Cisco and Jake, and I'll give you Goofy and Max on a Goofy movie next week here on the Micheaux Mission. Until then, he's Vince, I'm Len, and in parting, we say...
We'll see you when it's time to meet again.
Oh, a certain someone's going to kill me for the movie that I just showed.